Welcome into the Lantern Sports Big Ten Men's Basketball Tournament Preview. I'm your host, Casey Smith, and joining me as always is Jacob Benge and Gaurav Law. First things first, Ohio State, they have their first round matchup this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at the United Center in Chicago against the Wisconsin Badgers, a team they faced earlier this season. They came away with a 65-60 loss in a game that Chris Holtmann got actually ejected in, Jacob.
Yeah, it was an interesting game for sure, and that moment when Chris Holtmann got ejected, to be honest, I think it brought life back into that Buckeye squad because if we remember, that first half wasn't the smoothest for Ohio State, and then Chris Holtmann gets ejected, and then halftime happens. Whatever happened turned the Buckeyes on because in that second half they made it a competitive game. Ultimately, they didn't come out on top. But for that game in particular, I think Ohio State saw that it can put things together when just like at the drop of a dime, rather. So for the Big Ten tournament to be coming up, we've seen Ohio State get on a little bit of a winning streak of late. So it all can come together if the Buckeyes make it happen.
It's funny you talk about winning streaks. Just 2 years ago, Ohio State, they played 4 games in 4 days, making it to the title game against Illinois, losing in overtime, obviously. But, that's all it takes. You just got to get hot at the right time. March is insane, G. In the 12 to 13 seed matchups, the 13 and the 7 years since conference expansion, the 13s have actually won in a majority 4-3. So, what does Ohio State have to do to be able to get over the hump and sort of get a little bit of revenge on this Wisconsin Badgers squad?
Yeah, well, speaking of that Wisconsin squad, you got Chucky Hepburn, who's been a phenomenal sophomore for the Badgers this season. And they did lose that first game to Wisconsin, but I think Ohio State really has to come together. You had so much drama off the court. Is Bryce Sensabaugh going to the league? What's happening with Chris Holtmann? We don't know. He's been asked some of those questions in interviews as well. The Ohio State players having to deal with that off the court, and that's it seems like it's showing on the court as well. We talked about that streak, the 9-game losing streak, now on a 2-game win streak, and if they can keep this momentum going, maybe produce a little more on offense. They have the 4th highest scoring offense in the Big Ten, and 4th highest three-point percentage in the Big Ten. And if they can keep that going, get Sean McNeil, the shooter, out a little bit more, I think they'll be doing a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. Sean McNeil, the Sportsmanship Award winner for Ohio State, their representative in the Big Ten Conference. And if Ohio State wins this, Jacob, they move on and they face an Iowa squad. What do you like from them? Just sort of that experience, and Chris Murray, just sort of that highlight there at the top.
Yeah, it's right there for me. It's the experience that Iowa has. I think back to the Luka Garza and just the McCaffrey-led teams that can play any team in college basketball and, make it competitive and stick around. Ohio State's a team where, like I mentioned a second ago, they get streaky at times. I really enjoy when Ohio State can get those assist numbers rocking and rolling, when they can get a set play unravel how they expect it to. And so for Ohio State, if it gets things going against Wisconsin there in the first round and matches up against Iowa, I know they've played a couple of different times this season, third time could be the charm and, see Ohio State move on in advance like you mentioned a couple of seasons ago they did.
Right, an Iowa squad that just scores an unruly clip. If they get out of that second round, because they have that single bye or whatever, if they're able to make it out of that round, they're going to rematch against the Michigan State Spartans, which, rewind just a week or two ago, they had just an absolute classic of a game at Carver Hawkeye Arena where they're down, but they knocked down 5 threes in the final 30 seconds to tie it, send it to overtime. And, we're looking at an NBA score, triple digits for both sides. What do you like from the Iowa Hawkeyes as well as the Michigan State Spartans, G?
Yeah, of course. We talk about past players. You got Luka Garza, of course, Keegan Murray last season, who finished very close to being National Player of the Year last season and Big Ten Player of the Year. And this year you have Chris Murray, his twin brother, and he's putting up numbers very similar to Keegan Murray last season, almost identical. You got 21 points a game, 8 boards, a steal, a block, almost shooting 50 and 40 from the field as well from Chris. And in addition, like you said, Jacob, you got the McCaffrey brothers as well. But moving on to that Michigan State squad, you have a trio, you have a duo of 2 very good guards in Tyson Walker and A.J. Hoggard, along with Joey Hauser, who's been phenomenal from 3 all season.
Right, and I think Joey Hauser actually got snubbed from the All Big Ten team. There were questions whether he was going to be able to make it on that 3rd team list, and some people thought he should have made it over Michigan's Jet Howard. Michigan, another squad that could make some noise, they're sort of on the fringe of ESPN's bracketology, just whether they're out, whether they're in. I think they need a win or two to be able to cement their spot in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Michigan, I mean, you talk about Hunter Dickinson, one of the best big men in the league. Back-to-back Big Ten second team All Big Ten, excuse me. He's been a force all season. He's really gone up that three-point percentage also at 43%. I think Michigan has also been a little inconsistent, something we haven't seen from Michigan in recent years, excuse me. And I think Dickinson, if he can lead that team, I think they might have a chance to go far.
Yeah, for sure. And now we're going to move just west of the state of Ohio. We're going to talk about the two teams in the state of Indiana, Jacob, starting with those Hoosiers, which Ohio State faced at Assembly Hall. Just what do you like about that Hoosier squad that could really pay dividends come March and come this Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, it starts for most, and it starts for me with Trace Jackson Davis. His experience in college basketball, he has 3-4 seasons already at the Division I Big Ten level. He's been at stages like this before. Getting to see him in Indiana go to the first four last year and win, for him to perform the way he has, and for many and for me, he was my Big Ten Player of the Year, to be honest with you. Just the way that he impacts Indiana's offense, its defense on both ends of the floor, it all spreads around in that regard. And then you have Jalen Hood-Schifino, breakout freshman season that's been outstanding to watch. He can drop 20 on any team, it seems like. And that combination right there with the young freshman of the year, and Trace Jackson Davis, who can be one of the best players in college basketball, it's something that I really think can be to Indiana's advantage, especially at this time of the season.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about TJD. He was my Big Ten Player of the Year just because of, just his ball handling ability as a big, being able to rebound, score. He can do it all. He's such a great player. I thought he could have been Big Ten Player of the Year, but shifting to who actually won the award, Zach Edey in that number one seeded Purdue squad. Yeah,
you talk about Zach Edey, a player who's very comparable to Trace Jackson Davis, both phenomenal on both ends of the floor. You got great offense, great big, great rebounding, and great defense. Zach Edey, just some key stats for you. He's ranks top 20 in major statistics across the board, 16th in blocks per game in Division I, 22 points per game is 8th in Division I, and you got almost 13 boards a game, only trailing reigning National Player of the Year, Oscar Tshiebwe, in that award. And it seems like Edey is that National Player of the Year favorite for this year in the Big Ten. Obviously, he's the Big Ten Player of the Year as well. You also have some young core guards there too. Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, both freshman guards, shooting at the top on Purdue and from the three. But you got to also remember, they have been very vulnerable in pretty much all Big Ten's games, and a lot of Big Ten games this season. They had 10 wins in the Big Ten within 10 points. And you think about those teams in the Big Ten that every year they send 6, 7, 8 teams, especially in the past couple of years, to the tournament. And it seems this year it might not be as many. You got Purdue, Indiana, and maybe Iowa, Maryland locks, and then on the outside you might have Northwestern as well. So you just got to think about all the depth in the Big Ten too.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, you were talking about all those different stats for Zach Edey. The biggest one you left out, 7'4", 305 pounds. He's just an absolute force down low in the paint, and there's not many guys in the conference, let alone in the country, that can guard him, because everybody likes to use the argument, oh, he's just big, he's 7'4", he's got an insane wingspan. No, he can actually play with a little bit of skill to his game, and we saw that firsthand when we went to Mackey to cover Ohio State Purdue, and just his ability to take over. Even Felix Okpara, 6'11", was having trouble swatting down, making some careless fouls there early in the first half. Just even with a guy like his size and his wingspan and his athleticism, Zach Edey was giving him some work. So he's one of the toughest matchups, if not the toughest matchup in the country. So, that's why Purdue's seeded number one. And Jacob, I'm going to turn it to you. Who do you think's winning this Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, that's the good question. I think I would probably have to go with it feels like a safe pick to say Indiana, because I go back to the experience that they have, whether it's in the first four, the NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament, you name it. I really like the veteran coaching experience that Mike Woodson has. I think he's instilled that in the program culture there at Indiana. And I think they can probably just get it clicking a little bit. They can take teams down low to the post and, beat them with Trace Jackson Davis, or they can kick it out to a Jalen Hood-Schifino and a number of the other contributors. And so I think that's who that I would look at maybe being that safe pick going into the Big Ten tournament is Indiana and those Hoosiers.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against Indiana or Purdue, both those Indiana teams. I will say I'm going to go with Michigan State. I really like Tom Izzo as a coach. he also has that great amount of experience. Along with that duo, I said Tyson Walker, AJ Hogarth. Then you got Joey Hauser as well. I think those two, at least, Walker and Hauser, have a good amount of Big Ten tournament experience. Hogarth, also a junior, he has a good amount of experience as well. I don't know if I can bet against Izzo this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the John Rothstein mantra, January, February, Izzo instead of March, because it feels like those Spartans teams really come alive come tournament time. And for me, I mean, it's kind of the cop-out answer. I'm just going to say Purdue. I mean, 7'4", 305 pounds, Zach Edey, that's all you need to know. But like you mentioned, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Ethan Morton, Caleb First, Mason Gillis, they just have role players and glue guys all over the court that can spread you out. Fletcher Lawyer, he broke the hearts of Ohio State fans here in Columbus, knocking down a big three to help Purdue escape that upset attempt that kind of derailed Ohio State's season. That kind of where the train kind of left the tracks, per se. But, I mean, now moving on just a little bit, who's your sleeper, Jacob? Who can make a little bit of noise?
Yeah, sleeper pick. We mentioned Ohio State's winning ways. Maybe they can conjure it up here in the Big Ten tournament. Keep that maybe in the back of your minds. I think maybe more realistically, though, I do think Michigan State is a good pick to be a sleeper. And I know you picked them to win the Big Ten tournament, but I like the cases that you make with Tom Izzo in particular, and just his experience in tournament time. It's almost incomparable. The contributors that Michigan State has that's helped them beat Ohio State the last couple of meetings, I think that could possibly turn on at the right time for Michigan State in order to capture a Big Ten tournament. That's
Right. And that's not to mention they're shooting lights out from deep. I mean, some of the best three-point shooting I've seen from a Michigan State team in a long time. But who's your sleeper?
I really like Penn State this year. I know they're the 10 seed, but they are looking. I really like Jalen Pickett. He's top 5 in assists in the country, and he's averaging almost 17 points per game. I know that's only one player, but I really like Pickett. I think he can take them far. They've had some pretty good wins this season. I think Penn State might be able to do some damage.
And I mean, the oldest team in the country, experience plays in March. For me, as weird as this may seem, I feel like Illinois is kind of a sleeper. I mean, you got Matthew Mayer, Terrence Shannon, 2 Big 12 transfers that really patrol that Fighting Illini offense. But don't look past Dane Danger. 6'9", 270 pounds. He's just an absolute force down there in the paint, being able to control paint touches. And he's got a little bit of skill to his game as well. If teams go on the dig, they try and double him down low in the post. Maybe you could kick it out for Matthew Mayer 3, just an absolute dagger from beyond the arc. It's weird that a Brad Underwood coached team and a team that in Illinois that it feels like they're sort of a perennial powerhouse. Not a lot of people are talking about them. I mean, probably due in part because they lost to Ohio State, one of the worst teams in the conference from a record standpoint. But they're sort of my sleeper to make a little bit of noise there. I think they could win a game or two and maybe shake things up in this tournament. But we'll have to see. The conference tournament kicks off tomorrow, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. with Ohio State and Wisconsin. That game will be broadcast on the Big Ten Network, and we'll have all the coverage for you. But for now, for Jacob Benge and Gaurav Law, I'm Casey Smith. This has been the Lantern Sports Big Ten Men's Basketball Tournament Preview. Until next time, take care.